The smell of burning metal and scorched earth filled the air as Selene Kale sprinted through the narrow alleyways of Virion 6's settlement. The sky above was painted in hues of red and black, streaked with the glow of Dominion warships hovering ominously. Screams echoed through the desolate streets, drowning in the relentless roar of plasma fire. She had to reach them. Leon and Eva. Her children. Her heartbeat pounded against her ribs as she pushed forward, ignoring the sharp pain in her side. Her instincts, honed from a past she had long buried, screamed at her that something was terribly wrong. When the first explosion rocked the settlement, she had known this wasn't a raid. It was a massacre. Selene's boots skidded against the dust-covered ground as she turned the final corner, her breath catching in her throat at the sight before her. The small, modest home she had built for her family was now nothing more than a crumbling ruin. Smoke billowed from the wreckage, and the faint glow of fire reflected in her wide, horrified eyes. "No! No! No! No!" she gasped, forcing her legs to move. She stumbled forward, debris crunching beneath her weight as she reached the front entrance or what was left of it. Her fingers, trembling, clawed through the rubble, throwing aside pieces of broken furniture and shattered metal. Then, she saw them. Leon and Eva lay motionless in the center of the wreckage. Her son's protective arms were wrapped around his little sister, as if shielding her from the horrors of the world. Blood stained their clothes, their once bright eyes now lifeless. Selene dropped to her knees, a silent scream forming in her throat, but no sound came out. She reached out, her hands cradling their faces, feeling the warmth slip away from their fragile bodies. "Mommy's here," she whispered, her voice cracking. "I'm here, my loves. I'm here." But they were gone. A cold, unbearable silence fell over her. A silence that soon gave birth to something darker. Something feral. Rage. Despair. An all-consuming thirst for vengeance. Selene's fingers curled into fists, her nails digging into her palms as she forced herself to stand. Tears streamed down her face, but her eyes burned with an unholy fire. The Dominion would pay. A shadow loomed over her. The sound of heavy boots crunching against the debris snapped her back to reality. Selene turned, her sharp gaze locking onto the towering figure before her, one of the Dominion enforcers, clad in black armor, his plasma rifle still smoking from recent fire. He smirked. "Looks like we missed one." Selene moved before he could react. With a speed and precision that belied her grief, she lunged forward, twisting the rifle from his grip. The soldier barely had time to register the movement before she drove her knee into his ribs, forcing him backward. He gasped, but she didn't stop. Pivoting, she grabbed the rifle and slammed the butt of the weapon into his helmet, sending him sprawling to the ground. She aimed. Fired. The shot was clean. Silent. The enforcer's body went limp, the light fading from his visor. Selene took a deep breath, chest rising and falling with the weight of her rage. She had spent years hiding, pretending to be someone she wasn't. A simple mother. A peaceful citizen. But now, she was something else. A storm was coming. A reckoning. And she would be its harbinger. Selene didn't look back as she vanished into the shadows, leaving behind the corpses of her children and the first of many who would fall by her hand. The Dominion had made their move. Now, it was her turn. The city of Virion 6 was no longer her home. It was a graveyard, a ruined battlefield that had stolen everything from her. As Selene Kale moved through the dimly lit alleyways, her mind was a maelstrom of fury and grief. Her children's lifeless faces haunted her, burned into her memory like scars on her soul. But there was no time to mourn. She needed a weapon. She needed a plan. And she needed names. The Dominion had taken her children, and she would not stop until she had erased every last one of them from existence. Selene reached the industrial district, where Dominion forces had set up temporary command posts. Patrols moved in strict formations, their black armor gleaming under the neon lights of the city's lower sectors. A lesser woman would have hesitated, but Selene was not a lesser woman. She had been trained for war. Before she had become a mother, she had been something else entirely, something terrifying. The first soldier never saw her coming. She struck like a phantom, her knife gliding across his throat before he could make a sound. Blood splattered against the cold steel walls as she dragged his body into the shadows. The second soldier turned just in time to see her emerging from the darkness, his rifle rising. Too slow. Selene's hands twisted, snapping his wrist before slamming her knee into his gut. As he doubled over, she seized his rifle and fired point blank. His body collapsed beside the first. 2 down. Many more to go. She didn't need to kill all of them. Not yet. She needed information. Dragging one of the dying soldiers into the shadows, she pressed her knife against his throat. "Where is your commander?" she hissed. The soldier coughed, blood dripping from his lips. "You're too late," he choked out. "They've already..." She pressed the blade deeper. "Already what?" His eyes gleamed with something close to amusement, even in death. "You can't stop them. More are coming. Your planet, your people, all of it, gone." Selene's grip tightened. "Who gave the order?" The soldier let out one last, weak laugh before the life drained from his eyes. She released him, her fingers stained with his blood. The Dominion wasn't finished. This massacre was only the beginning. Selene retrieved his communication device, quickly scanning for command signals. A name flickered across the screen, Commander Dorian Voss. She memorized it. Then she vanished into the night, leaving behind nothing but corpses. The underground resistance had been scattered after the attack, but Selene knew where to find them. A hidden enclave deep in the lower city, a place where Dominion rule was weaker, where those who still dared to fight gathered like ghosts. She approached a nondescript doorway in the shadows of an abandoned building. A biometric scanner flickered to life as she pressed her palm against the panel. A voice crackled through the intercom. "Identify yourself." "Shadow 22, she whispered, using the old codename she had sworn never to speak again. A moment of silence. Then, the door hissed open. Inside, battle-worn faces turned toward her, eyes filled with suspicion and curiosity. Some of them recognized her. Most thought she had vanished years ago. A man stepped forward, his scarred face etched with disbelief. "Selene." His voice was hoarse, as if saying her name was enough to conjure ghosts. "You're supposed to be dead." "Not yet," she replied coldly. "But they will be." He studied her for a long moment before nodding. "Then let's get to work." The war had begun. The room was silent, save for the soft hum of power generators and the distant murmurs of resistance fighters exchanging information. Selene stood in the center, her presence commanding attention even as her mind raced through possibilities. The name Commander Dorian Voss echoed in her thoughts. He was the key. If she wanted true vengeance, she needed to get to him. Across from her, Marcus Rowe, the scarred leader of the underground resistance, crossed his arms. "You show up after all these years, and you expect us to follow you on a suicide mission?" Selene's gaze was cold, unflinching. "I don't expect anything. I will do this with or without you." But if you want to stop the Dominion from turning this planet into another wasteland, we need to act. Now. A tense silence followed. Some of the fighters exchanged glances. They had suffered losses, but they had also seen what Selene had done in a single night. One woman had left a trail of blood and fear in her wake. Marcus exhaled sharply. Fine. We have intelligence on Dominion movements. Voss is stationed on the Harbinger, their primary warship in orbit. Getting to him won't be easy. It never is, Selene said. How do we board it? A woman named Talia, the group's strategist, pulled up a holographic display. They'll be transferring key personnel from their ground bases to the Harbinger tomorrow night. If we hijack one of their transport ships, we can slip in unnoticed. Selene nodded. Then that's what we'll do. The night was darker than usual, as if the stars themselves had hidden away in fear of what was to come. The Dominion outpost was heavily guarded, but Selene had spent her life slipping past death's grasp. Alongside Marcus, Talia, and 3 others, she moved like a phantom through the perimeter, eliminating sentries with surgical precision. At the landing pad, a sleek Dominion transport hummed as its engines idled. They had seconds before the next patrol came through. Selene signaled to Talia, who quickly hacked into the ship's access panel. The doors hissed open. Move, Selene ordered. The team rushed inside, taking control of the cockpit. Marcus secured the Dominion pilot while Talia overrode the ship's tracking system. We're clear for departure, Talia confirmed. Brace yourselves. The transport lifted off, slipping into the dark void of space. As the Harbinger loomed before them, Selene's grip tightened around her stolen Dominion rifle. This was it. Her war had begun. But vengeance always had a price. And she was ready to pay it in blood. The stolen Dominion transport glided smoothly through the vast expanse of space, its false credentials allowing it to approach the Harbinger unchallenged. Selene sat in a co-pilot's seat, her body still and composed, but her mind was an inferno of purpose. Marcus and Talia sat behind her, checking their weapons. The others had taken positions in the storage compartments, hidden from the inevitable security scan. We're approaching docking bay 7, Talia whispered, her fingers moving swiftly over the control panel. I've disabled the biometric scans, but we only have a few minutes before they realize something's off. Selene adjusted her stolen Dominion uniform, the high collar stiff against her neck. Then let's make every second count. The transport connected to the Harbinger with a mechanical clank, the docking process complete. A Dominion officer appeared on the comms screen, his face impassive. Transport 0-9-4-7, state your clearance code. Talia's fingers danced over the console. A moment of silence. Then the officer nodded. Proceed. Welcome aboard. The hatch hissed open. Selene stepped forward, her heart steady as a drum beat. She had infiltrated enemy strongholds before, but this was different. This was personal. The corridors of the Harbinger were pristine, metallic, and humming with quiet menace. Selene walked with practiced confidence, her stolen Dominion insignia glinting under the harsh lights. Marcus and Talia followed closely, while the rest of their team remained hidden aboard the transport, waiting for their signal. Voss will be on the command deck, Marcus muttered under his breath. We need access to the upper levels. Talia veered towards a nearby security station, tapping into the mainframe with a portable hacking device. I'm in. There's an officer's access corridor 2 levels up, but it's restricted. Selene didn't hesitate. Then we take what we need. A patrol unit approached. 2 soldiers, clad in Dominion armor, their rifles slung across their backs. Selene and Marcus acted simultaneously. A swift movement, a silent snap of vertebrae, and the soldiers crumpled. Dragging them into a side alcove, Selene stripped one of his ID badges and clipped it onto her uniform. "Let's move." They ascended through maintenance shafts, bypassing secured hallways until they reached an observation deck overlooking the warship's vast command center. Below, officers moved in synchronized precision, their movements dictated by the iron-fisted rule of Commander Dorian Voss. Selene's eyes locked onto him. There he stood, tall and commanding, his silver uniform immaculate, his presence a chilling reminder of the power he wielded. This was the man who had orchestrated the massacre of her children. The architect of her suffering. For the first time since this mission began, her fingers trembled. Not with fear. With fury. Marcus placed a steadying hand on her shoulder. "We take him out cleanly. No heroics." Selene exhaled sharply, regaining control. "I'll handle Voss. You secure the data." Talia tapped her earpiece. "We've got incoming patrols. We don't have much time." Selene's lips curled into a dangerous smile. "Then let's finish this." With a final glance at Voss, she readied herself. The hunt had begun. The cold steel walls of the Harbinger's command deck gleamed under the harsh, artificial lighting. Selene crouched behind a structural support beam, her breath steady, her mind honed to a razor's edge. Below, Commander Dorian Voss paced before a massive holographic display, his hands clasped behind his back as he reviewed battle strategies with his officers. This was the man responsible for her children's deaths. This was the moment she had been waiting for. Talia's voice came through her earpiece. "Security teams are cycling patrols. We have a 5-minute window before reinforcements arrive." Selene nodded to Marcus, who positioned himself along an upper walkway, a silenced rifle in hand. He would provide cover. Selene would take care of Voss personally. She slipped through the shadows, moving with practiced precision. As she neared the command platform, she withdrew a combat blade from her belt. Guns would make too much noise. This needed to be quick. Just as she was within striking distance, an alarm blared through the ship. "Unauthorized access detected. Security teams to the command deck immediately." Selene cursed under her breath. Talia's voice was frantic. "They've found the ship. We're blown, Selene." Voss turned sharply, his sharp blue eyes locking onto her. "You." Recognition flickered across his face, followed by something almost like amusement. "I assumed you died like the rest of your pathetic family." Rage surged through her veins, but she forced herself to remain cold. Controlled. Deadly. She lunged. Voss dodged, his movements surprisingly fast for a man of his stature. He drew a sidearm, but Selene was faster. She knocked his wrist aside, sending the shot wide, and slashed upward. The blade grazed his cheek, drawing blood. The Dominion officers sprang into action, reaching for their weapons. A single gunshot rang out from above Marcus. One officer dropped instantly. Chaos erupted. Selene pressed the attack, driving Voss back toward the massive viewport that overlooked the planet below. He blocked her next strike with an armored forearm and countered with a vicious punch to her ribs. Pain exploded in her side, but she gritted her teeth and twisted away before he could land another blow. "I underestimated you," Voss admitted, wiping blood from his cheek. "But you won't make it out of here alive." "I don't need to," Selene growled. "I just need to make sure you don't." The doors burst open, and Dominion reinforcements stormed in. Marcus fired off rapid shots, covering Selene as she pressed forward. Talia's voice crackled in her earpiece. Extraction route is compromised. You need another exit. Selene pivoted, scanning the room. Then she saw a reinforced observation window. Thick, but not unbreakable. She holstered her blade and grabbed Voss by the collar, yanking him towards the glass. You don't get to walk away from this. Voss struggled, but Selene was relentless. With a final, brutal strike, she drove his head against the viewport. Cracks spiderwebbed across the glass. Selene, what the hell are you doing? Marcus shouted. She didn't answer. Instead, she activated a small explosive charge and pressed it against the compromised glass. Voss's eyes widened in horror. The explosion shattered the viewport. Air rushed out, pulling everything toward the void. Selene clung to a nearby railing, watching as Voss was yanked into the black abyss of space, his scream cut short by the vacuum. The emergency lockdown engaged, sealing the breach. Alarms blared as the ship struggled to stabilize. Talia's voice came through, urgent. Escape pods. Now. Selene locked eyes with Marcus. Time to go. They sprinted through the chaos, the ship's interior now a battleground as Dominion forces scrambled to regain control. They dodged incoming fire, weaving through corridors as sirens howled. Bursting into the escape pod bay, they wasted no time. Selene slammed the launch button, and the pod ejected into the void, plummeting toward the surface of the planet below. As fire engulfed the sky around them, Selene closed her eyes. The commander was dead. But the war was far from over. The escape pod rocked violently as it hurtled through the planet's atmosphere, flames licking at the edges of the viewport. Selene braced herself against the walls, gripping the seat straps as turbulence threatened to rip the pod apart. Across from her, Marcus clenched his jaw, his hands gripping the control panel in a desperate attempt to stabilize their descent. Brace for impact, he shouted over the roar of the wind. The pod slammed into the ground with bone-jarring force, skidding across rocky terrain before coming to a shuddering halt. Smoke filled the cabin, and the emergency lights flickered as systems powered down. For a long moment, there was only silence, save for the distant rumble of falling debris from the Harbinger's destruction in orbit above. Selene unbuckled herself and shoved the emergency hatch open. Fresh air rushed in, carrying the scent of scorched earth and metallic residue. She climbed out, scanning the desolate landscape. Jagged cliffs loomed in the distance, their edges glowing faintly under the light of a crimson sun. This world was barren, a forgotten rock on the edge of the Dominion's control. Marcus followed, wincing as he checked a bleeding gash on his forehead. Well, that could have gone worse. Selene exhaled sharply. We need to move. Talia, do you copy? Static filled her earpiece. Then, after a tense pause, Talia's voice crackled through. Selene? You're alive. Barely. Where's our extraction? Not good news, Talia said grimly. The Dominions mobilized half their fleet. They are scanning for you. I can't get a ship anywhere near your location. Selene's jaw tightened. Then we'll have to find our own way out. A sudden explosion erupted nearby, sending a shockwave across the rocky terrain. Selene spun, eyes narrowing as dust settled to reveal a squad of Dominion soldiers advancing towards them. Their black and red armor gleamed under the sun, rifles raised and ready. Marcus muttered a curse. No time to run. Selene's hand went to her sidearm. Then we stand. The soldiers opened fire. Selene and Marcus dove for cover behind the wreckage of their pod, returning fire in sharp, precise bursts. Energy rounds sizzled through the air, striking the ground with scorching heat. Selene moved like a shadow, weaving between cover and picking off enemies with lethal efficiency. Marcus covered her flank, his shots swift and deliberate. The Dominion troops were well trained, but they weren't ready for her. Selene darted forward, grabbing a fallen soldier's rifle and using it to cut through their ranks. A knife to the throat, a shot to the temple, each movement was precise, honed by years of relentless training. Within minutes, the last Dominion soldier crumpled to the ground, his weapon clattering beside him. Selene wiped the blood from her blade, breathing heavily. That won't be the last of them. We need to find shelter. Marcus gestured toward the cliffs. There might be caves. It'll buy us time. They moved swiftly, traversing the rocky expanse until they found an opening in the cliffside. Inside, the air was cool, the walls lined with strange, crystalline formations that pulsed faintly. Selene set up a small perimeter while Marcus patched up his wound. "Talia," Selene said, "we need a new plan. How do we get off this rock?" Talia was silent for a moment. Then, her voice was grim. "There's an old smuggler's outpost about 20 clicks from your position. If you can reach it, you might find a ship." Selene nodded. "Then that's where we're headed." Outside, the sky darkened as Dominion ships circled overhead, searching. Time was running out. The hunt was far from over. The cave was silent except for the distant hum of Dominion patrol ships sweeping across the landscape. Selene crouched near the entrance, scanning the horizon through a pair of scavenged binoculars. Dust storms swirled across the barren plains, momentarily obscuring the searchlights of their enemies. The smuggler's outpost was 20 clicks to the east, hidden within a ravine. Getting there without being detected would be nearly impossible. Marcus finished tightening the bandage around his forehead and sighed. "We need a plan." Selene lowered the binoculars. "We go at night. The storms will give us cover." Talia's voice crackled through the earpiece. "Selene, I intercepted some Dominion chatter. They know you're headed east. They've deployed scout drones." Selene exhaled sharply. "Then we move now. The longer we stay, the worse this gets." Marcus nodded, checking his rifle. "Lead the way." They slipped out of the cave under the cover of swirling dust, moving low and fast across the rocky terrain. Each step was deliberate, every movement calculated. The wind howled around them, masking their approach but also making it harder to hear incoming threats. Halfway to the outpost, Marcus suddenly raised a fist, signaling Selene to stop. He gestured toward the ridge above them. Silhouetted against the storm, a Dominion drone hovered, its scanning beam sweeping methodically across the ground. Selene tensed. If it spotted them, Dominion reinforcements would be on them in minutes. With a flick of her wrist, she unholstered a compact energy dagger. She waited, muscles coiled, then sprang into action. The drone shifted slightly, as if detecting movement, but before it could sound the alarm, Selene leaped onto a rock outcrop and hurled the blade with deadly precision. The dagger struck true, severing the drone's sensor array. It sputtered and crashed into the sand, lifeless. Marcus exhaled. "Nice throw." Selene retrieved her blade, wiping it clean. "Let's move." They reached the ravine an hour later, bodies aching from the grueling pace. The smuggler's outpost was carved into the rock, its entrance disguised as a rusted cargo door buried beneath layers of dust and debris. Selene pressed her hand against the scanner panel. Nothing happened. Talia's voice came through. "It's coded. You'll need another way in." Marcus frowned. "We don't have time to hack it." Selene's eyes swept across the rock face. Then she spotted a ventilation shaft, just wide enough to squeeze through. Up there, she said, pointing. We climb. With Marcus giving her a boost, she hoisted herself into the narrow tunnel. The metal was slick with condensation, the air stale. Crawling forward, she reached the other side and dropped down into a dimly lit corridor. Moments later, Marcus landed beside her. Ahead, voices echoed from a chamber filled with crates and supply lockers. Selene peeked around the corner. A group of smugglers, heavily armed, were arguing over a recent trade gone wrong. One of them, a scarred man with cybernetic implants, looked like the leader. Selene took a slow breath. They needed a ship, and these were the only people who had one. Steeling herself, she stepped forward, hands raised in a non-threatening gesture. We need a ride. The smugglers whirled, weapons drawn. The leader narrowed his eyes. And who the hell are you? Selene met his gaze, unwavering. Someone who can pay. A tense silence filled the room. Then, the leader smirked. Let's talk. The smuggler leader studied Selene with an amused smirk, his cybernetic eye flickering as it processed her features. His men kept their weapons trained on her and Marcus, but there was no immediate hostility, just cautious curiosity. You say you can pay, the leader drawled, stepping forward. But credits don't mean much out here. We deal in favors, leverage, and survival. Selene didn't flinch. I have something more valuable than credits. Information. The leader chuckled, glancing at his crew. Information? That's a gamble. You got proof? Selene pulled a small data chip from a hidden compartment in her suit. This contains intercepted Dominion transmissions. Codes, patrol routes, weak points in their defenses. Enough to get you through any blockade. The room went silent. The smugglers exchanged uneasy glances. The leader reached for the chip, but Selene snapped her fingers, keeping it between them. First, we talk terms. His smirk returned. All right, lady. You've got my attention. Let's talk. They were led to a back chamber filled with holomaps and outdated Dominion tech. The leader, who introduced himself as Garran, gestured for them to sit. His second-in-command, a tall woman with jet black hair named Vexa, leaned against a table, watching Selene closely. You want a ride, Garran said, leaning back in his chair. Where? Selene met his gaze. Off-world. Safe passage past Dominion checkpoints. Vexa scoffed. Safe? That's a tall order. We can do it, Garran said, rubbing his chin. But like I said, payment isn't just credits. You give me those codes, sure. But I need more. Selene frowned. What more? A job. Garran's grin widened. We got a shipment that needs delivering. Problem is, it's in Dominion hands. We need someone to retrieve it. Marcus tensed. You want us to break into a Dominion outpost? Garran shrugged. Think of it as a test. You pull it off, you get your ride. Selene's jaw clenched. It was risky. But without a ship, they had no way off this rock. She exhaled. Fine. Give us the details. The Dominion outpost was heavily fortified, a repurposed military installation now serving as a supply depot. Getting in would be difficult. Getting out alive near impossible. Selene and Marcus crouched behind a ridge overlooking the compound. Night had fallen, but the base was well lit, guard towers sweeping their spotlights across the perimeter. We need a distraction, Marcus murmured. Selene studied the surroundings, then spotted a fuel transport parked near the entrance. That truck. If we set it ablaze, they'll be too busy dealing with the fire to notice us slipping in. Marcus nodded. I'll handle it. He crept through the shadows, reaching the transport undetected. With precise movements, he rigged a small explosive charge near the fuel tanks. He retreated, pressing a detonator into Selene's hand. Your call. Selene waited until a patrol passed, then pressed a trigger. The explosion was deafening. Flames shot into the sky, alarms blaring as Dominion soldiers scrambled to contain the inferno. Move! Selene whispered, and they dashed toward the breach. Inside, the outpost was in chaos. Smoke filled the corridors as Dominion personnel struggled to respond to the emergency. Selene and Marcus weaved through the confusion, reaching the storage bay where their objective awaited a reinforced cargo container marked with smuggler insignia. Marcus accessed the controls, bypassing the security lock. The container hissed open, revealing its contents. Weapons. Advanced Dominion prototypes, unlike anything they had seen before. Selene's blood ran cold. This isn't just smuggler loot. This is war-grade tech. Marcus glanced at her. Garran didn't tell us everything. Footsteps echoed in the hallway. No time for second-guessing. Selene hoisted the container onto a hover dolly. Let's get out of here. As they exited, Dominion forces were rallying, sweeping the compound. They couldn't fight their way out, not with this much attention. Marcus pointed to a ventilation shaft. Through there. With great effort, they shoved the container into the duct, crawling after it. The narrow passage led them outside, but the base was now on full alert. Their comms crackled. Talia's voice came through. Dominion ships inbound to your location. You need to move. Now. Selene scanned the horizon. Their extraction point was still half a mile away. Then, headlights flashed in the distance. A sand skimmer sped toward them. The driver? Vexa. She skidded to a halt. You got it. Selene slapped the container. Let's go. They piled in as blaster fire erupted behind them. The skimmer roared forward, kicking up dust as Dominion forces pursued. Vexa veered sharply, leading them through jagged rock formations to shake their tail. As they neared the smuggler outpost, Selene exhaled. They had done it. But something about those weapons unsettled her. And she knew Garran wasn't done with them yet. Selene knew something was wrong the moment they stepped back into the smuggler outpost. The air was too still, the usual rowdy atmosphere subdued. Garran stood at the center of the room, flanked by heavily armed guards, his smirk wider than usual. You did good, he said, tapping the cargo container. Real good. But plans have changed. Selene tensed. What are you talking about? We had a deal. Safe passage in exchange for the job. Garran chuckled. And you upheld your end of it. But see, I got to thinking, why let you go when I could use someone like you? Those weapons? They are worth more than you realize. And I need someone with your skill set to help deliver them to a very special buyer. Vexa shifted uncomfortably but said nothing. Marcus stepped forward, fists clenched. We're not for sale, Garran. A deal's a deal. Garran sighed dramatically, waving a hand. His guards raised their weapons. See, that's the problem. You're thinking small. I'm offering you a chance to be part of something bigger. The Dominion is crumbling, and there's a power vacuum waiting to be filled. I intend to be the one to fill it. Selene's heart pounded. So you're just another warlord in the making. You think you can outmaneuver the Dominion and survive? They will hunt you down. Garran leaned in. Not if I have leverage. Which, by the way, I do. He snapped his fingers, and the side door slid open. Two figures were pushed forward, Selene's children, Kale and Lyra, their hands bound, fear in their eyes. Selene's blood ran ice cold. "No," she whispered, her hands clenching into fists. "Oh yes," Garran taunted. "See, I did my research. You've been a ghost for years, but even ghosts leave traces. Your kids were surprisingly easy to find. And now, they are my insurance. You work for me, they stay safe. You refuse? Well, you can imagine." Marcus was already reaching for his weapon when Vexa intervened. "Garran, this isn't necessary. We don't need." "Enough!" Garran barked. "This is my operation. They are mine now. That's the end of it." Selene locked eyes with her children, her heart aching at their terror. She took a deep breath, forcing her expression to harden. "Fine," she said coldly. "I'll do what you want. But you let my children go first." Garran grinned. "Smart choice. But they stay with me until you prove your loyalty. One more job. Then we'll talk." Selene exhaled slowly, already calculating her next move. She wouldn't let this stand. Garran had just made the worst mistake of his life. And he was going to pay for it. Selene's mind raced as she stared at her children, bound and frightened. The weight of their fear settled on her shoulders, but she kept her expression neutral. Panic wouldn't help them now. She had played this game before, long before she ever became a mother. The only difference was that this time, failure meant losing everything. Garran smirked, relishing his perceived victory. "Now that we understand each other, let's get started. I have a shipment heading for an old Dominion outpost, one that's about to change ownership. You'll be the one to deliver it." Selene tilted her head, pretending to consider. "And what's stopping me from turning the shipment over to the Dominion instead?" Garran chuckled, clearly amused by her defiance. "Besides your children? Well, let's just say I have eyes everywhere. If you so much as step out of line, they die. It's simple." Vexa and Marcus exchanged uneasy glances. They knew Selene wasn't one to submit so easily. There had to be something brewing beneath her cold facade. Selene took a steadying breath, her mind forming a plan. She had always been meticulous, always 2 steps ahead. She had one chance to turn the tables. If she failed, her children would suffer the consequences. As the mission commenced, Selene was escorted to the docking bay where the cargo awaited her. She ran her fingers along the crate's surface, recognizing the Dominion insignia scratched beneath the grime. It was stolen military tech, dangerous and valuable. Garran watched her carefully. "Don't try anything stupid. I need that cargo in one piece." She forced a smirk. "Oh, I never try." Vexa and Marcus flanked her as they boarded the ship. As soon as the bay doors sealed shut, Marcus turned to her. "What's the plan? Because I know you have one." Selene exhaled. "We're not delivering this shipment. We're using it." Vexa's eyes narrowed. "Using it how?" Selene tapped a code into the ship's terminal, accessing the cargo manifest. "This tech isn't just weapons. It's Dominion override keys designed to take control of any Dominion vessel that still uses their old security codes. If we use them right, we can hijack one of their ships." Marcus ran a hand through his hair. "And do what?" "Take on Garran's entire operation alone." "Not alone," Selene corrected. "We're going to make sure the Dominion comes looking for him. And when they do, we take back my kids in the chaos." Vexa let out a low whistle. That's bold. Reckless, even. I like it. Back at Garran's compound, the smuggler was reviewing his security feeds when an alert blared across the monitors. A Dominion warship had entered the sector, and it was broadcasting a distress signal, one that originated from the very cargo he had forced Selene to transport. His smug expression faltered. What the hell is going on? Selene's voice crackled over the comms. You made a mistake, Garran. You never should have threatened my family. The smuggler's face twisted with fury as he slammed his fist against the console. You think you can outplay me? You. An explosion rocked the compound. The Dominion warship had begun its assault. Selene, Marcus, and Vexa moved swiftly through the chaos, cutting down guards with ruthless efficiency. With the Dominion forces distracting Garran's men, they had one objective: retrieve Kale and Lyra. In the holding area, Kale and Lyra flinched at the sounds of battle outside their cell. Then, the door was blasted open, and Selene stood in the doorway, weapons drawn. Mom! Kale gasped, eyes wide with relief. Selene's heart clenched. We're getting out of here. Now. She freed them just as more of Garran's men arrived. Vexa and Marcus covered their retreat, taking down hostiles with deadly precision. Selene ushered her children toward the escape route, keeping her movements swift and controlled. But Garran wasn't done yet. The smuggler intercepted them in the hangar, his rage barely contained. You think you can just walk away from this? After what you've done? Selene stepped in front of her children, her gun steady in her grip. You were already dead the moment you put your hands on my kids. You just didn't know it yet. Garran lunged, drawing his weapon, but Selene was faster. One shot. Right between the eyes. Garran collapsed, lifeless. Selene exhaled sharply, adrenaline coursing through her veins. It was over. As they escaped aboard a Dominion shuttle, Kale clung to her. Mom, are we safe now? Selene wrapped an arm around him, pressing a kiss to his forehead. For now, she whispered. But we'll always be ready. Marcus and Vexa exchanged weary smiles. So what now? Marcus asked. Selene gazed out into the vastness of space. We rebuild. We stay ahead. And if anyone comes for us again. Her eyes darkened. They won't live to regret it.